you guys were not. You were in. Actually, you were in our preseason.
I was in Portland as well.
I want to cover playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the fans to enjoy and experience playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the Canucks to win a Stanley Cup for this city. And looking at Raptors Twitter right now, a fade for Cade. I feel like a lot of them would love to see him there. I mean, I'm not advocating for that, but I mean, I know that's big on Raptors Twitter minds these days.
There's a lot of Twitter warriors out there.
LA gave one out to Jared Goff, and they've already moved on. Correct. They didn't think that could work for them.
It's all good. It's in it. It's in the box.
It's in the box.
Perfect.
For the Unnamed Sports Show, here's your host, Joshua Griffith.
That is right. This is the Unnamed Sports Show, and I am, of course, your host, Joshua Griffith, here on the Sports Talk Line Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. Today on episode 52, I am going to be joined by Jay Bowman of the Trust the Process podcast and At the Movies 10 Years Later podcast. And we are going to chat all things NBA playoffs. We're going to look at his Philadelphia 76ers as they obliterated the Washington Wizards last night, 120-95. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to look at the rest of the series in the East. We're going to move along to the Western Conference, look at what's happening with the Lakers, that other team from LA, as they are down 2-0 to Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. But before we get into the interview with Jay, we're going to take care of some housekeeping, of course. Make sure you like the video down at the bottom. Subscribe to the Sports Talk Line Network channel if you don't already, and comment along. Let me know what you think of the NBA playoffs. And then as we get into things, we're going to be chatting some movies and some pop culture with Jay, because he's big into that. So that will be at the end of the episode. So make sure to tune in for all of that. So without further ado, we will get right to the interview with Jay Bowman. All right. So when one door closes, another one opens, which brings me to my next guest, someone who knows the difference between an adverb and an adjective, from the swear word party at Trust the Process with the Stanch and Wyatt Arndt, and At the Movies 10 Years Later podcast, the man who also owns 2 Captain America shields, the one and the only Jay Bowman. Jay, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much, Joshua. What a great intro. Thank you for mentioning my very low-rated movie podcast. That's fantastic. We're trying to get that thing to 100 followers by the 10-year mark, so we're going to do it. I'm super excited to be here. Love what you do, man.
Well, I will we'll make sure that we pump out that At the Movies 10 Years Later podcast. Hit the bottom in the subscription. You'll be able to see a link for that on Twitter, and you can follow that. Let's get them over to 100, okay? So like I said, I was so jacked you were able to fill in for my guest who had to cancel last minute, but love your podcast so much. Enjoy all your takes on NBA, NHL, and of course the cinema. I promised you 20 to 25 minutes worth of your time, and I told you would definitely have a good time. And I literally DM'd this to you. So
it's true. I'm not going to share DMs. I'm not that guy, but this all happened.
It looked a little bit awkward when I read it back, but we got this going, and I'm thrilled to be talking some NBA basketball with you. You're decked out in your 76ers gear. They had a huge blowout win, 120-95 last night against the Washington Wizards. You must be feeling pretty good right now.
I'm feeling good. I scaled it back to just the hat and jacket. Hockey jersey with no jersey. We're in low key mode. Fantastic game too. Nothing to be upset about there. Seth Curry getting a little banged up was a bit worrying. But after the first game, and I didn't really want to play the Wizards in the first round for the 76ers just because, Westbrook and Beal can take over a game. And the Wizards are a team that have been incredibly hot down the stretch. They've been playing must-win basketball for the last 2 months after the way they started. So, I was a bit nervous about the matchup, and game 1 didn't do a whole lot to dissuade those nerves. It was pretty close. And again, Beal and, Westbrook were playing great. Tobias Harris had an awesome game 1. I've been loving that guy all season. Somebody who I was completely wrong about last year and the year before, I was very down on Tobias Harris, and he's been making me eat my words all season. But yeah, super dominant win in game 2. Westbrook potentially injured. I don't know whether it was the ankle thing or the popcorn that was dumped on him that hurt the most. Yikes. But no, can't be upset with the effort yesterday for sure.
And we mentioned popcorn, so we're going to talk about some movies a little bit later, but that's a little bit disrespectful. Then you see a fan spit on Trae Young at the Madison Square Garden. I mean, that ruins just such the great atmospheres we're getting from these NBA playoff games right now.
Yeah, welcome back, fans.
Yeah.
Quick reminder for you: act like humans, please, just a little bit. It's ridiculous.
So you mentioned the Washington Wizards' hot start, and they had to make it through the play-in series. What did you make of the play-in? Because I really liked it for the NBA this year. I hope that that's something that they keep moving forward. Looks like they're going to, but man, that was exciting. Some of those games, the Lakers Golden State Warriors matchup, I was just glued.
I love the play-in. I want to see them keep it moving forward. Just the fact that there's still a chance for some of those fringe teams to make it in, because in the West, and I know Donovan Mitchell's back, so I think we could all get off of our fantasy of the Memphis Grizzlies winning that series over Utah. But the fact that, Memphis wasn't even supposed to be in it based on standings. Memphis played their way in and got a 1-0 series lead on the best team in the NBA record wise. But I love the play-in. I think it's great. I think it's exciting. It gives those fringe teams something to play for down the stretch. It gives the fans something to be excited about if they're a little bit outside playoff positioning. I think it's awesome. And it was really, really good this year.
What do you make about, because there was talk, okay, they had the discrepancies. The Lakers, they had such a good record. They were, I think, up over 10 games above 500. What do you make about that argument that it's maybe not fair to those 7-8 teams that have done it for a 72 or an 82 game regular season?
I think that there's not enough data yet to determine what's fair and what's not. I say give it another year or two, maybe give it a 2-year extension. We'll do it next season, or even just 1 year. We're going to do this after an 82 game season. We're going to see what issues and problems it has, and then we're going to make our adjustments after that. So I think it's too soon to tell if there are any real significant issues and problems with it. But I know that Golden State versus Lakers matchup killed in the ratings, and that was captivating basketball before the playoffs even started.
It was like an NCAA college game. It was like a one or done. I know it wasn't one or done technically because the losing team still got to play it, but it was so electrifying in that aspect of okay, they have one shot. It's not a series. It's about, can the ballers come out to ball? And Steph Curry and LeBron James came out and balled.
It's incredible. NFL playoffs, it's one and done. It's very, very high stakes. Any given weekend, something can happen. A team that has no business winning could win. And adding that kind of intrigue to, the NBA playoffs, or even the NHL playoffs, if you're going to do play-ins moving forward there too, just really adds a little something at the tail end of the season. Gives the teams who punch their ticket and earn their way in a little bit of a chance to rest, which I think is great. And also, like I said, just the high stakes college style basketball, like you said, of you pretty much get one shot, maybe two, but that's it, and then you're done. It's great. I love it.
Okay, so we're beyond that now, and we're into the actual first round. It's looked pretty good. Let's stay in the East. Milwaukee has handled the Heat. I didn't know if I thought that they would be so dominant. Brooklyn and their big three, they're trying to make a title run. I know you're not a Brooklyn fan. See, I'm not sold on Brooklyn either. And I wasn't really sold on Philly, but down the line and kind of watching them in the first couple of playoff games, they might be a team that's built for the playoffs. Who are you looking at in the East that could maybe give the 76ers kind of a run?
I think the way everything is positioning itself, it's a matchup of destiny to have the Nets and 76ers meet in the Eastern Final. Everything's sort of gravitating towards that. I think, the Nets, interesting to see down the stretch. They had a lot of injuries, so you don't really know what they're like as a team with their big three for a sustained period of time. They've been handling the Celtics pretty well so far. I would probably say Milwaukee is a team that I slept on a lot all season, and they're, playing really, really well right now. They have a lot of talent in Milwaukee, and I think a lot of people have forgotten about them in all the conversation around the 76ers, around the Nets, and even around, the Knicks kind of being back in the playoffs, being that, sexy upstart. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Milwaukee Bucks right now. I was hoping the Heat would win that series just because, Milwaukee's a team that I would not be shocked if they won the whole thing this year and nobody saw it coming, because they got a lot of depth. That's what it takes to win in the playoffs. You got to have that depth. I think the secondary unit for the 76ers is probably the best in the entire playoffs. I'm a little, just a bit biased with that. But yeah, I'd probably say Milwaukee is the team I'm looking at in the East that I'm very, very nervous about. But they'd have to go through the winner of the Nets and Celtics first. So it'd be a while before the 76ers matched up against them.
How quick we are that the Bucks have fallen off the map, though, right? Like, you mentioned, like, they're not even really like people are, do they forget that Giannis is like a 2-time MVP and and they've done a good job this year with him having that option to go into free agency and then making the extension. They're like, okay, we're gonna kind of make another move this year, and he's been really good in the first 2 games. Yeah, like they're a 3 seed, so everyone's talking about the top 2, but again, as a 3 seed, they're super dangerous and a really, really good team, and they've dropped off as far as I think intrigue goes, but as far as talent, they haven't. So again, that's a real, I hate to call a 3 seed a sleeper team in the East, but not a lot of people talking about Milwaukee right now. Okay, well, what else do you like in the East here? I mean, Miami's had their struggles. Boston's kind of on their heels right now. The Raptors didn't even make the playoffs. I mean, they go way back when, and I think I had the Raptors competing for the East finals in the playoffs at some point. Are we going to see kind of a shakeup in the East next year? Because it's really wide open again.
Hard to see. I mean, I think if Philadelphia does not win this year, they didn't really go big at the trade deadline or anything. There was talk about making a potential deal for Kyle Lowry that maybe was interested in going there. He was linked to a lot of teams in the East. I'm thrilled that none of them kind of pulled the trigger on it, because if he was on the Nets right now, or if he was on the Bucks or somewhere else in the East, I'd be sweating bullets right now, because that guy's a big time player. But I think the plan for the 76ers was pretty clear at the deadline. We are not going to give up players or assets just yet. We like the group that we have this year. However, if they don't get it done this year, I see, Morey being super aggressive next year and mortgaging the future of the franchise, because the window, it's got to be these next couple of years, especially with Embiid taking the steps that he did this year, Simmons playing at a really high level. They're getting a lot of really good contributions from very cheap contract players. They're depth guys. So I see if it doesn't work out for them this year, they're going to break the bank and go all in next year. And that might be the only shakeup you see in the East, is maybe they acquire, a superstar player in a blockbuster trade to make that final push. Aside from that, I see, the Knicks getting a taste of this success, I think is good for basketball, and it's good for the Knicks. And I see the Knicks really leaning into what's worked for them the last couple of years, getting them back to this point. And I think the Knicks are in the East to stay. And that they'll, for the next several years, continue to be a more powerful player. And then I don't think the Nets, that stuff isn't sustainable. You bring in your 3-headed monster, you build your little super team and stuff, and you get 1 or 2 kicks of the can, and then that's it. So yeah. And I think the Raptors will be back. They won a title in 2019, so I'm not upset that they're not in the playoffs.
Hey, but we're us Raptors fans. We're good for the next 10, 20 years. We're golden. Okay, so
and as soon as the 76ers win, I'm sure I'll be inundated with a bunch of Kawhi Leonard highlights from that shot at the end of Game 7, which, as much as that hurt, it was cool to be witnessing what is such a historic moment in sports that's going to live forever. I saw that happen live, like a lot of people did. My reaction was a lot different than a lot of people's was, because I was incredibly heartbroken and disappointed and frustrated a little bit. But there was that little bit of, I just watched live a huge moment in North American sports history. And that's pretty cool, taking personal investment out of it. So
I really loved hearing it from your perspective, because we always hear it from the Raptors fans' perspective. Oh yes, we saw that bounce. We saw it bounce.
Yeah.
And I loved you breaking it down on Trust the Process, the podcast with you and the Stanchion Wyatt Arndt. And you broke it down. You said, hey, Simmons had him and he made that switch. And then Embiid double jumped. And he was late on the and then I rewatched it after from that perspective, look at it and I go, oh geez, it was one little tiny thing. And so not even just one, but there was like 300 million little tiny things that had to happen for that play to go right, for the Raptors to not go to overtime, for them to win that game 7. So,
and even though it didn't work out, that's what I love about sports. Right. Yeah. Trust me, I've watched that clip about 100 times. So all the little minute details and stuff, but yeah, just the butterfly effect of it all, that one little thing goes different. They don't switch. Embiid doesn't do that first jump trying for the block. That game goes to OT and who knows what would have happened. I mean, I thought the Raptors were going to get rolled up by the Bucks in the Eastern Final and was surprised. But after that kind of win against Philadelphia in Game 7, that's team of destiny stuff. Yeah, and it was the 10-year anniversary a couple days ago of the Kevin BX stanchion goal. Not going to get too deep into 2011 because your wonderful viewers don't need to see me, see the grown man cry here. But certain things, the Dragon Slayer goal, the stanchion goal from that run, makes you really feel and believe, to be romantic about sports, that this is a team of destiny, that this is going to happen. So I was glad to see the Raptors go on and actually win the NBA title after that. So
yeah, it was cool to see. So I'm joined by Jay Bowman of Trust the Process podcast and the 10 years after movie podcast here on the Unnamed Sports Show. So we've talked about the East. I want to move over to the West a little bit. I picked the Lakers for back-to-back championships, and I might be eating my words as they're in pretty tough against the Phoenix Suns. Who do you like out of the West? What are your favorites?
Lakers being a play-in team is just crazy to me. That's just insane. And I like them a lot in that matchup against the Suns. The Suns too. You never count out LeBron and Anthony Davis. No way. Utah, it's obviously, Utah is a team I feel is going to go far. If they keep their guys healthy and everything, Utah's got a lot of depth. Utah's a really good team. It's tough because in the West, I'm seeing players who are very obviously going to take the awards from my 76ers guys. So Rudy Gobert is going to be the defensive player of the year and not Ben Simmons. And I'm just making my peace with that on a daily basis. And then Jokic is going to win MVP over Embiid. As much as the homer in me wants to be oh no, Embiid, he missed 21 games, right? The 76ers weren't that good when he wasn't around, but still Jokic was there every single night. So I like the Denver Nuggets a lot too, but I also like the Blazers, and I've liked the Blazers for several years out of the West. Hard team not to like. Lillard is one of the premier players in the league, and the more playoff Lillard we get, the better we all are as basketball fans. So I hope that the Blazers beat the Nuggets in that series, and then maybe that sways some MVP voters Jokic couldn't even get him out of the first round. Maybe it is Embiid. But aside from that, what else we got going on in the West? What's the other series there?
Well, you mentioned the Denver Portland one.
Yeah, 3-6.
Phoenix LA one. That one's tied up at 1.
Oh, the Clippers and Mavericks.
And the Clippers and Mavericks.
Clippers, get out of here. Clippers. Yeah, I'm thrilled with how that series is going. I like the Mavericks. I think Luka, again, the more playoff Luka we get is better for the league. Yes. So I'm really pulling for the Mavericks there, and the Clippers that's a foregone conclusion. No, the Lakers are the LA team in prominence. It was super strange a year or two ago when the balance of power in LA basketball seemingly shifted, and the Clippers were going to be the team. Right. And you see some celebs starting to jump ship, and everyone's like, oh, the Clippers. And then nope, it's the Lakers still again. So
It was the same classic Steve Ballmer yelling like we did when Microsoft came out. It's the same thing. We've been saying it for 20 years.
Man's a hell of a dancer.
So, yeah, you mentioned Luka Doncic. He is super exciting to watch. And one of the best descriptions I've ever seen of Luka Doncic is he has a great clips haircut and a body that resembles a bag of milk. But he is one of the most exciting players in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I feel seen when I'm watching him. Like, you got to put yourself into the action a little bit. I've got the milk body too.
I think it was like it's like you mentioned that the fan thing and being involved with the sports. It's like seeing a 50-year-old Phil Mickelson win a Masters tour. Like, oh, maybe that could be me.
Yeah,
but
it's a lot better than hearing people talk about hockey players being, way over the hill, or even football players too, way over the hill. They're past their prime and they're garbage and they're the same age as you are. It's like, yeah, I know they're professional athletes, but it always stings a little bit to be like, oh, he's 35. He's useless. I'm like, I'm 35.
Yeah, I had to get into that mentality really quickly when I'm like, wait a second, I'm interviewing somebody that's 18. Okay. I'm going to look forward to my life. So yes, 50, might win if I pick up my golf game, I might win a PGA championship. So I still have that left to look forward
plenty of time to be a super successful pro golfer at 50. I'm in no rush. Phil could do it.
Phil could do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's pretty much the NBA that I wanted to cover, but of course I wanted to chat with you about some Canucks and pop culture.
Okay.
So what did you want to go over first? Do you want to go over the horror movie that was the Canucks season, or get to some of the listeners' movie questions?
Yeah, let's get that Canucks stuff out of the way.
Good, because it's my show and that's what I had lined up.
Yeah.
So you picked right. So I want to briefly talk about this Canucks season. There's, not much that hasn't been beaten on a drum already, but if you could look at the season through the lens of a romantic comedy, and I'm going to set up our next segment, so this is perfect. What would be a rom-com that would describe the Canucks season?
Oh, geez. Well, it'd have to be a bad one.
So you got lots to pick from.
Yeah, it has to be a bad one with some likable stars in it. Like some people I enjoy watching these folks, but this is just absolute garbage and trash. I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go with, I'm not a huge Julia Roberts or Richard Gere guy, but let's go with Runaway Bride. Whereas, okay, the Canucks team, they used to be great. Like, yeah, Pretty Woman, a classic. Fantastic. I know it's the difference in time is different, but 10 years ago, the Canucks were the class of the league. What a team. Absolutely unreal. Here comes Pretty Woman, breaking box office records. One of the greatest romantic comedies of all time. Everyone loves it. Everyone trying to duplicate the formulaic success of Pretty Woman. Everyone wants their own Pretty Woman for their studio to set the box office on fire. Everyone's trying to find the next Julia Roberts. And then, okay, cool. Let's, flash forward to a little bit later. They're doing Runaway Bride, and it's the same people, but it's just it's garbage. It's trash. It's no good. The magic is clearly gone. You're sitting there, you see little glimpses of Gere and Roberts, what you liked, back in the day, but it's clearly not the same, and it's problematic. So I'll go with that. There's
no ensemble cast either.
No, there isn't. This is a 2-person show. So yeah.
That is fantastic. That's not what I was expecting, but you know what? I'm not gonna lie. If I got what I was expecting, I probably wouldn't have asked you on the show, because that would have been a boring interview.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Okay, so what else? I mean, same GM, same coach. It's going to be a lot of the same players. What are they going to do this offseason?
I'm still just baffled by all of that. What have you seen in the last 7 years? If you're the owner or even higher than that, what have you seen in the last 7 years that tells you, yeah, we're heading in the right direction? They got the participation invite into the play-in for a one-of-a-kind, once-only bubble tournament that they ended up going pretty far in because of stellar goaltending. They should have lost that Vegas series in 3, as far as I'm concerned, with the way they were getting outplayed. but you go, oh, we were one game away from the Western Conference Final. Like, yeah, on paper, if you look at it just written like that, sure, it seems like there's a lot of progress, and this is, you know, a direction that you could really get behind. But when you actually kind of break it down to, okay, how did those games go? How did they play? Yeah, the series against St. Louis was great, but Vegas was their first time in that run. They had run up against like a buzzsaw. Like, this is what a class NHL tier 1 team looks like. Here's how you stacked up against them, even though you had a freak goalie go off for a couple of games. And you just watch that handshake line again. I don't recommend doing it, but if you were going to, and just see like every single Vegas player when they encounter Thatcher Demko is just like the bewildered, like, unbelievable, unreal. Oh, just, yeah, that tells you the story right there. No one was like shaking hands with, you know, with Besser going, oh, dude, we didn't know how to stop you. Or Horvat or Tyler Myers going, man, you're tall. No, it was all about Thatcher Demko and how amazing he played. So I think, although as great as that run was, there is nothing more detrimental to the long-term success of the franchise than the bubble playoff last year, because it sent the message to the wrong people that we should stay the course. We're on to something here. When, you know, if you stop the season when it ended, they're on the outside looking in. Yeah, and the way they were playing, anything could happen in the spring, but they most likely weren't going to even make it to the playoffs in the first place. And that would have been how many seasons of missed playoffs. Now you've got the futility of you're wasting some of Pettersson's years. You're wasting Hughes's years. You've got a good young core. I think if the bubble playoffs never happened, Benning's gone a year ago, 100%, because he's been desperately making moves to try and make the playoffs to save his job for years. And if you're just trying to squeak in, what does that mean for the long-term success of your team? I don't want a team that makes it in and then gets shelled as soon as they run into a Colorado Avalanche. Can you imagine if the Canucks made the playoffs this season with the team they have and they had a 1-versus-8 matchup against Colorado? So, I mean, that would have been a nightmare. Again, that's over in 2.5. So, yeah, they're not there. And I don't even know how close they are, but I feel like they think they're a lot closer than they actually are, which is why they're bringing the band back together and doing this for an 8th year, when at this point the sample size is big enough. You got to move on, but I'm not in power. I'm not in control. I can't do that until I find, you know, something I can wish on. So.
Yes, and unfortunately, from my show, I don't get to be GM either. Otherwise, you know, I could have made all the right moves as well. But yes, looking back at this, as a Canucks fan, it's okay to want more, to strive for greatness, to strive for not just making the playoffs, to strive for a Stanley Cup contender, like what this organization had when other teams are phoning and saying, hey, you know, you guys have really innovative strategies. What are you guys doing? How can we learn from that as an organization? Not now looking back and be, oh, well, we got one game within the Western Conference Final last year. They weren't even going to if the season had gone, no way they were making the playoffs last year with Markstrom injured as he was. Demko would have been thrust into action. Mikey DiPietro. No, sorry, I guess Louis Domingue would have been the backup. The master baker.
Yeah, and then who's going to make the pies?
Yeah. So
it's a trickle-down effect. But as a fan, as a Canucks fan, I love the team. I'm always going to love the team. I want a window, and they're giving me a peephole. Yeah. That's basically it, right? They're drilling a hole. Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
You mentioned Hughes, you mentioned Pettersson. They're literally about to go off their ELCs.
Yeah,
that is
wasted them.
That's a wasted opportunity. And then now we're looking at I don't know if the Canucks organization thinks that Canucks fans are really naive or they're not smart or educated, but it's okay to say, hey, this is our 3-year plan or our 4-year plan or a 2-year plan. Like, this is what we need to do as an organization to get to that level, not just cheap. I think somebody made it throw a piece of duct tape on a leaking water hole. Like you need actual answers, and Canucks fans are okay with getting them if they're actual answers.
Yeah, to your point, I'm a positive sports fan. I am a sports fan of faith. I want to believe in the plan. I want to trust the process. But there is no plan nothing that has ever been communicated clearly to the fan base or anything. And if they do say something, then they act in a way which is counter to what they said they're looking at doing. It is very confusing and frustrating. And that's where I get, upset and disappointed as a Canuck fan, because I'm willing to go through some bad years of this team. I'm not asking for second round or bust every single year. It's unrealistic. There's going to be, parity in the league. Things are going to flip. I get that. But, just something to inspire some hope. And they had that with the players. They had that with your Petterssons and your Hugheses and Bessers, good young goal, Demko, good young goalie. Like, they've got fans on board as far as who's on the ice. But when it comes to the supplementary, supporting cast of characters they're going to put together, that's where things come off the rails. And it's really disheartening to see. So I'm not going to cheer for the Kraken or anything. If you people are going to do that, they're, more power to you. But it's sad. And this was probably the saddest season there's been since I was a kid. Like, it's grim. It is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, because, with some of the other seasons, there's at least explanation as to why they were so glaring. But now, you look at this one. And as people heard at the beginning of my intro with Jeff Patterson, he wants to cover a Stanley Cup for Vancouver. It's not like the media doesn't hate the Canucks. We all want to watch the Canucks win a Stanley Cup. Okay, so shake that out of your friggin' heads, okay?
That insane narrative that people get their jollies covering a team that's bad. I remember back in 2012 when Wyatt and I were working with the province and we're writing and things are going really well. And we just got one day we looked at each other, man, I would love to do this for a long time, but I don't know how easy this would be if the team was garbage and no one wanted to read our stuff about it. And, to that effect, I know it's quite difficult for, guys like Wyatt doing the Armies, guys like Rob Fay doing the Nation. When you're doing fun, engaging content for a not fun, not engaging, frustrating team to watch, it can be really tough to get engagement from readers or viewers or listeners because no one's in the mood to laugh about it, really. No one's, wants that extra content. You watch the game, that was enough for you. I want no more Canucks content because of it. Like, I'm done. So the fact that people are out there saying, oh yeah, the media, the negative clicks, and that's what they're really on about is covering team as tire fire. No, because if the team was great, everyone would want to read everything about it all the time.
I have two perfect examples of this. When I first got into this, covering the Whitecaps, JJ Adams told me that get ready for after a loss. The only person who's going to read your article is the Whitecaps comms person. Two, last game, I think it was last game. No, it was the game before when the Whitecaps lost 3-0 to Sporting Kansas City. They had Maxime Crepeau, the keeper, who had a great game. Wasn't any reason why they lost 3-0. He was available for media. I was the only person stupid enough to ask a question. It was about a 45-second answer. That was the end of media.
You were the whole media.
That was it. Nobody else wanted to ask a question.
Of course,
people like, oh, well, like, no, we want to talk to these people after the engagement that we get from these players and from the teams is so much better when they're winning.
Oh yeah. Back in the day, I wouldn't go down to the room if they lost. I wouldn't. I'd, be up in press row and stuff. And I would go down and get quotes and try and have a bit of fun if they won. But if they lost, that was a dour room. And the players, it's as nice as it is to see that it's not just rolling off their backs, that they don't care that they lost or anything like that. I just remember seeing Alex Edler just slumped against his locker, looking like someone just stole his dog and ran it over right in front of him. And it's being like, these folks aren't in the mood for any of my antics right now, or any, hey, here's a fun question I got for you. No, the only guy who was ever up for that was going down there and always seeing like Eddie Lack, but that's just because Eddie's just a super nice guy. But you could tell also Eddie was just like, not having it after a loss. So yeah, I would not go down and ask questions or be in any scrums or anything if they lost, just because, yeah, the players themselves don't want to be there, don't want to talk about it. They have to.
Yeah. So I hope people can understand. That's kind of why also I love JPAT, and I was stoked that he came on my show. So that's why that's in my intro. So in case you think that media are cheering for a losing team. So we'll lighten things up a bit and we'll get to some of these movie questions and stuff that we got from Twitter from some various people. So there was a lot of great ones. So
Okay.
I know you're a giant movie buff. You got some segments on your Trust the Process podcast.
Yeah.
And then of course on your At the Movies 10 Years Later podcast.
There it is. You got it. Yeah.
So first question we got here was from Jimmy Yan. And he asked, is there a standalone movie that you would wish that they made into a trilogy or had a sequel?
Standalone movies are tough because there's so many of them that you that had sequels made because they were so successful that you kind of hindsight and look back and go, I wish they really hadn't made those. Like you imagine if there was only one. So go ahead.
Well, reverse question then. What movie that had a sequel or a trilogy do you wish they would have just stopped it at one?
Oh, I'm flip-flopping because it's also tough because imagine a world where there was only one Matrix movie, right? They just did the one. And how awesome.
I would have been okay with that.
Yeah, that was great. He flies off at the end and stuff, and that's a good, okay, done. The thing made boatloads of money, needed a sequel. People were super excited. I was excited. Oh my God, they're shooting both of these at the same time. These are going to be fantastic. And they really weren't. And it stunk. And it took a lot of the shine off the rose of the original Matrix, which is still a fantastic movie. But now it just gets lumped in and dragged down by its legacy. And that's tough. Pirates of the Caribbean At the Movies 10 Years Later, we are going to be covering Pirates of the Caribbean at Stranger Tides. The premise of the show, if people don't know, is that me and my good friend Janine, we watch and review whatever movie was #1 at the box office 10 years ago that same weekend. So we're in the summer of 2011 right now with some hits and some misses, but we just covered Pirates of the Caribbean 4. And that's another prime example of imagine a world where there was only one Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And it was that first one. And it's excellent. It's it's a perfect summer movie, but no, it was a huge success. And, give the studio their druthers. They're in this to make money. They're not in this for the art. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. And that franchise was a license to print money. So, oh yeah, let's do 2. Let's shoot them both at the same time and let's expand the mythos and everything. And then they were a mess and they've been a mess throughout. So now when you hear someone talk about Pirates of the Caribbean, it's always like, and not like it should be because of the first one. As far as franchises that, were standalones that should have had other ones, I really liked Firefly. I know Joss Whedon is kind of persona non grata right now, but I really enjoyed the Firefly show. And I thought Serenity was a really good movie from like 2005. I thought that would have lended itself well. Galaxy Quest. It would have been cool to maybe see some more Galaxy Quest. That's a fantastic movie. Great standalone. Amazing performances.
Alan Rickman.
Wrote the entire Rickman. My boy Sam Rockwell. It would have been cool to see other Galaxy Quest movies. But again, you kind of look at it through that lens of, would we love the original so much if the sequels weren't that good? There's a crazy, I love talking movies. I'm so happy.
No worries.
There's, a weird thing going on in the last decade or so with comedies where they started bringing out sequels to comedies 20 years after the fact. And they're awful. Like, Anchorman 2 wasn't very good, but how are you going to try and recapture the magic from Anchorman 1? Yeah. They come out with Dumb and Dumber 2, which is terrible. And I'm sorry, I don't mean if you love these movies, Joshua. I
was going to touch in Zoolander 2.
Zoolander 2 was the exact next one I was going to bring up. Is like, hey, 20 years later, let's get the band back together and recreate this magic. And you can't do it. Expectations are too high, and it was lightning in a bottle the first time. Know when to walk away.
Yeah, know when to and then there's those movies that are there's very few, and I think far between, the sequels are better than the actual movie, especially for comedies like what you're talking about. 22 Jump Street, I think, is one of the only ones that checks that box, that the sequel was, and then they're like, okay, that's it. We're not. They did that. The ending is great. They made fun of. They can do another 30.
Yeah.
But they weren't going to do it. They're like, okay, that's it. No, we're done.
It was perfect. It was so good. And I never want to see 23 Jump Street. There was the rumor that they were going to mash up 21 Jump Street and Men in Black into a super movie or whatever. Yeah, which is maybe just crazy enough to work. But no, I'm glad that they stopped there. Every time they come out and they announce a new Toy Story, I'm like, no, stop it. Leave it alone. It was perfect as is. You are tempting fate. And then every time it comes out, it's better or on par than the one prior to it. And I'm like, okay, the Toy Story 4 came out. I was so against it, passionately against this thing because Toy Story 3 was so good. Stop making these things. One of them is going to be bad and it's going to ruin the entire experience. And then 4 came out and it was also really good. So it seems like they've packed up shop. There will be no more Toy Stories. But again, how rare is it that we're talking about a 4-movie franchise spaced from 1995 to 2018, 2019? I think 2019 was when the fourth one came out. And each movie is standalone is really good. And 2 and 3 are phenomenal. So, yeah.
I love all of the Toy Story movies. They have a special place in my heart. So that's great. You brought up, I'm getting completely off topic, but I know you love talking movies.
That's what we do.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You brought up Men in Black.
Yeah.
What did you think? I like the third one. I don't know. I kind of liked it, but it brought things together, I guess, a bit.
Yeah.
I didn't really like the second one, but I thought that the third one brought things together and was like, okay, let's put a cap on it. What did you think of the Men in Black series?
Yeah, I am inclined to agree. I love the first one. Yeah. Super clever. I watched that tons of times when it came out. I love the first Men in Black. It is excellent. And sometimes I catch it still on TV and I watch it. I'm like, this is really, really good. And then the second one was a mess. The only thing about the second one that was good was the Will Smith song that was attached to the second one, which I feel, controversial opinion, was better than the song he did for the first one. Nod your head, Black Suit's Coming, greater than Men in Black song.
The Men in Black,
yeah. Out there. Yep. And then the third one, yeah, to your point, I actually enjoyed the third one. I thought the third one was pretty good with the time travel bit. Having Josh Brolin play a young Tommy Lee Jones was like note perfect casting. Casting almost doesn't get any better than that. It reminded me a lot as far as franchise trajectory to the Oceans series. So Oceans 11. I loved Ocean's 11, right? It has a bunch of stuff that's ridiculous in it, but Ocean's 11 is great. It's a fun time, awesome movie. Was super excited for Ocean's 12. Ocean's 12, personal opinion, big disappointment. Most of the crew spent the whole movie in jail. It could have been called Ocean's 5 and we all could have gone on with our lives, right? And then Ocean's 13 came out and recaptured a lot of that sort of magic from Ocean's 11. And I thought Ocean's 13 was actually a pretty damn good movie. So I feel Men in Black and Oceans are very, very parallel with each other. And what the hell, let's do a mashup.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. For the Ocean's 12 movie, I kind of I liked some of the stuff. I liked all of Toulour. Make a standalone Toulour movie. I mean, I could have watched that, but yeah, like you said, it was just, and then all of it to go down and then you steal it from a bus or a train.
Yeah, like the subversion of it. Like, I get it. You're trying to get us to do, to think it's going to be this big thing, but it isn't. I also love Toulour. So maybe that's part of why I mark out so huge for Ocean's 13, because spoilers for a movie that's over 10 years old, but 07, I think. But when they brought Toulour back in the third act of Ocean's 13, I was so excited. I was so pumped. It was great.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, when you first saw that, and then Matt Damon, you have a gun.
Yeah,
throws it to him. Yeah, that was just classic.
Great stuff. Yeah,
so we'll get back into some of the Twitter questions. Stephanie at Pagnificent wants me to tell you that you're amazing.
She's great. Yeah, she's the best. We've been friends for a while.
And she says, recast one MCU character, and it cannot be Emily Blunt. By the way, this is the only thing he's wrong about.
Oh, come on now. Emily Blunt would have been a phenomenal Black Widow, and that's a hill I'm willing to die on. But if I'm not allowed to recast her,
no, you got to pick a different one.
Okay. All right, I think I've got it. Now, he was already in the MCU. Eventually, the MCU is going to come for everybody. Everybody's going to be involved at one point or another. They just came out with the Eternals trailer the other day. I was like, cool. We've got Jolie now. We've got Rachel Madden. Everyone's getting scooped into this thing. I would probably say, even though he was fantastic, and I hope to see him come back in the future as Justin Hammer, I think Sam Rockwell would have been an amazing Hawkeye.
Ooh, yeah.
He's got that bit of snark to him. He's got that bit of edge to him. He can be funny. He can quip with the best of them. He was good as Justin Hammer, as kind of the anti Tony Stark. But no, I think, and Sam Rockwell is one of my favorite actors. I think that, Sam Rockwell as Hawkeye would be phenomenal. Would be awesome.
Yeah, that would have been good. He plays more to like the original comic book of Hawkeye too, just with his like kind of physique, because Hawkeye wasn't really like a buff guy. He was more of a lankier little small guy who would fire away from arrows. So yeah, no, I could see that. I like that.
And I'm interested to see what an MCU would have looked like if they never recast Edward Norton as the Hulk. Like if he would have continued on as Banner all the way through, even though Ruffalo did an awesome job, still something I find myself wondering about, when I'm staring at the ocean for long periods of time is, what would have happened if Norton wasn't so notoriously difficult to work with and they kept him on as Bruce Banner. Because then you look at the heavyweights in that cast, like Edward Norton, one of the finest actors of a generation, participating in all these MCU movies, that would just, lent a really, interesting credibility to it when it was first kind of getting, started, because Downey, before Iron Man came out, Downey was a huge risk. And Chris Evans was the failed Human Torch. And Chris Hemsworth, no one had ever heard of him before. We just covered Thor, the first one, on At the Movies 10 years later. Look at this, weaving these in. Talking about how there was a headline when it was cast, like, oh yeah, they've gone with two unknown nobodies for Thor and Loki. So they took a lot of risks out the gate, but now these are iconic castings. And as I think about who would I potentially recast in the MCU, so many of them are note perfect. And that's what a good job they've done throughout, is just finding the exact right people. And that's even the stuff that's coming up. Mahershala Ali is going to be an awesome Blade. I think that's going to be absolutely fantastic. Who knows who they're going to cast as the Fantastic Four, but I trust they're going to do a really, really good job there. I have total faith in any casting decisions they make. I mean, God, how perfect is Tom Holland as Spider-Man?
Yeah, they finally took 3 tries or however many it did, but finally found the right Spider-Man. Just a perfect casting fit for that. Geez, I should have wrote down what I was going to comment on. But I love that you brought up Edward Norton. Now, my roommate was kind of mentioning, we talked about this actually, funnily enough, the other day, and he thought that he would have been really good for the first couple of ones, but maybe the last 2, it would have been a kind of an awkward fit into, I guess, Bruce Banner as that half Hulk, half Banner. Yeah, I
have a hard time picturing floating green screen Edward Norton head inside a Hulkbuster armor for Avengers Infinity War.
That one kind of seemed like it would have been a bit of a stretch, but I think he would have been good in the rest of them.
Yeah, because Ruffalo as the Professor Hulk, as the smart Hulk in Endgame or whatever, has such a charm to him that, Norton just wouldn't have.
Yeah. Okay, so next question from Adam Kurzenblatt. At Adam K. Blatt from Third Line Podcast, another podcast that I really enjoy. Check that one out if you don't. It's about Western Hockey League and all that stuff. So has the movie and TV industry lost its charm due to constant remakes and reboots, which is perfect because that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, to an extent, sure. I mean, depends on how long you're kind of waiting. In some situations, they've managed to get away from a full-on reboot by kind of just doing little soft reboots. Like one of my favorite movies as a kid, the movie that made me and movies got serious at that point. I stopped liking movies and I started loving them when I saw Jurassic Park when I was a kid. So the last, obviously, 10 years of my life, I've been in fear of, they're going to do a remake of Jurassic Park. Terror keeps me up at night. They never did, and they probably won't for another 20, 30 years or whatever, but they did that kind of soft reboot with Jurassic World and stuff, which the first one was really good, had a lot of nostalgic callbacks, and then the second one was not. It depends on what they're trying to remake and when what they're remaking came out. There was a big issue that I have with remakes of 80s movies. it happens all the time, and it's probably happened to you. Hopefully it hasn't, but maybe it's happened to some viewers as well, where you ever find yourself, you're scrolling through the TV channels, seeing what's on, and then you see, oh, sweet, RoboCop is on. And you turn it on, and it's the one from 2014 or whatever, and you're super disappointed. Or, oh, awesome, Point Break is on. I'll watch a bit of Point Break, and no, it's the Point Break remake. Like Footloose is another one that gets me with that. Total Recall. I think Red Dawn. I think anything, The Thing. I could go on. Anything that was made in the 80s should just be left alone, because that was a very special time for movies, and you can't recreate that kind of stuff now. There were some, I call them 90s 80s movies, that still had that level of I'm not going to say indifference, but like unapologetically, they're violent and silly. They know what they want to be, and they don't have studios coming down saying, we got to sell a bunch of toys here though, or, oh, we got to think about our like online web presence and maybe doing a secondary, thing on streaming services or this and that. It's like, nope, we have 90 minutes. It's going to be a bunch of dudes in a jungle against a camouflaged killer intergalactic hunter, and we're just going to let them go. And whatever happens, happens. There's going to be violence. There's going to be swearing, and it's going to be awesome. And it always was. Even silly movies in the 80s. It was over the top was the Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling movie.
Oh, yeah.
That is dumber than a box of hammers, but damn if it's not enjoyable. What was, oh, geez, I'm killing myself here. Swayze as the bouncer. Roadhouse.
Oh, Roadhouse. Yes.
Yeah, Roadhouse has a lot of like niche cachet right now, but Roadhouse is awesome. It's dumb and it's really silly, but it's awesome. And if you tried to do a remake of Roadhouse right now, which I think I read years ago, they were going to try and do it. It's like, if you can't match the feel of the first one and that kind of devil may care vibe to it, then what's the point? Because you're making Roadhouse, trying to turn it into the shirtless bouncer cinematic universe. Where's the synergy? How are we going to split this off into more projects and this and that, and get more people watching? And everything just gets so diluted down. It's really tough. So that's kind of, I guess I circled around to it. My answer around, do I feel like the constant remakes are, hurting things? It really just depends on what's being remade and how it was made originally. It's crazy that the rule for remakes seems to be, oh, this has to be something that was super beloved and popular and really successful, and we'll just do it again. And it's not just like movies get second chances. Like, hey, remake Super Mario Brothers, maybe. Yeah, they took that thing in a whole new direction. Apparently, the original script for that was like a lot of fun, and that's what everybody signed on to do, was the original script for Super Mario Brothers. It was more of like a fantasy type thing, and it was like really lighthearted and a lot of fun, kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit sort of style. And then they changed the script and changed the whole design of the movie, and it was a drab mess, but they should instead maybe focus on remaking some stuff that should have worked, but for whatever reason, budget concerns, actors not being available, studio notes, the script rewrites, take some of that stuff and remake some of that. And let's have second chance cinema. Doesn't exist, but I would love to see it exist, because, it never will, because people will feel, oh, the brand is tainted. No one's going to go watch another Green Lantern movie, so there's no point in trying it again. Let's just, give it some time and do it as a TV show or do it as this. Like, they know that the brand has suffered too much that they'll never take a chance on, let's do it, but let's do it right this time.
No, I like that. That's a good point. I mean, you don't think about that. It's always the popular movies that they try and remake, not the ones that, okay, maybe it didn't go well. Well, let's look back at why it didn't go well. Maybe it was a really cool concept, but it just didn't work for whatever reason. And it'd be cool to see more of those ones.
Yeah.
So I got one more for you as we're getting up to, of course, way past 20 to 25 minutes. Of course,
it's all right. I'm having a great time.
I am too. So my producer will not when he has to edit this later, but I'm sorry about that, Lee. So one more here from Andy Lau at A Loud Brother.
Oh, yeah.
So recast Kazam and Ace Ventura. And if he wants to cast someone as an equivalently good or bad actor for Kazam, and then for Ace Ventura, you have to find an iconic player and a team for Ace Ventura.
Okay. All right. So we'll start with Kazam. which I'm sorry, this is the Shaquille O'Neal rapping genie movie, correct?
Yes, this is the
Shaquille
O'Neal rapping genie.
Yeah, of course it is.
That I had a poster of the movie on my wall as a kid. I wish.
All right. Oh, so you got that pose down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I knew
that big laugh of his. Yeah. I wonder how much of the movie before it existed in its script stage didn't have the genie rapping, but when Shaq signed on, he insisted that no, I'm gonna rap. Because the rapping in it was dreadful and terrible. But I know that was around the time where he was trying to launch his rap career too. What else was Shaq Fu? That guy was going hard to the hoop on his branding at the time. So I'm like, yeah, let's fold the rapping into the genie movie.
I think that's when he was first starting his dancing too, and all that stuff.
Oh my goodness. See, I would love, let's keep it in the NBA. Let's keep it in that same era. I would have loved to see Dennis Rodman play the rapping genie instead of Shaq. Maybe he does a little less double impact or double team or whatever he's farting around with Van Damme doing. And instead he plays the rapping genie. But that would have been a much different movie.
That would have been rated R.
Yeah, Dennis Rodman granting a 12-year-old boy's wishes is a recipe for disaster. But you know what? That sounds like an 80s movie to me. So maybe it's one of those 90s movies that had that 80s vibe to it. But yeah, that would have been all right.
I'm gonna spend a couple of minutes thinking about that movie would have been like and how it probably would have changed my background and influence.
It's weird. The genie keeps making suggestions to the kid for what he should wish for. It's not how genies work.
Okay, and we'll move to the
Ace Ventura, right?
Yeah, if you have to replace Dan Marino and the Dolphins with an iconic player, and
that's so tough because the whole movie hinges on it being the Miami Dolphins because it's a dolphin kicking a field goal and he's a pet detective. So it's really tough to say, let's plot Marino out of there and let's make him a Pittsburgh Steelers player. It had to be Dan Marino, which is a bit sad.
I'm not gonna lie. I just wanted to talk about Ace Ventura. So I'm
in. It's a bit sad when you think about it though, because Marino, that's a sad comparison in retrospect because the guy never won a title. I think he made it to the Super Bowl, his rookie season or his second season or something, and played phenomenally. And everybody was so sure. That's why it's sports, man. It's no guarantee. Everybody was so sure this guy's going to get back to the dance. This guy's going to win a title. Absolutely. First ballot Hall of Famer, just based on his incredible, rookie campaign and stuff and making it to the Super Bowl so early. But he never made it back with the exception of Ace Ventura, the movie. That was it. His second greatest achievement in his career is fictional, which is crazy to think about with Dan Marino. Now, okay, let's think here. I'm going to go with a player that I loved because you also have to think about the mascot has to do something football related for that movie to still work. You can't have him palling around with Steve Young and there's some old prospector for the 49ers that kicks field goals who gets kidnapped. Ace Ventura won't care about an old prospector getting kidnapped. I'm going to say let's have an Eagle who catches passes, and let's get Randall Cunningham, my childhood favorite. Loved Randall Cunningham as a kid. Yes. First jersey I ever owned. Let's get Randall Cunningham in Ace Ventura. Let's do it.
Okay, so and then we're going to have to replace the Marina with a train station?
Sure.
For the end there?
Or it takes place at the Liberty Bell.
Let's
just scoop some extra Philadelphia on there. Takes place at the Liberty Bell. There's your big there's your big finale, or the Rocky Steps. Museum there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, at the Rocky Steps, and 2 throwouts to Philadelphia because of course, big Philadelphia 76ers fan. Yeah. Jay, thank you so much for joining me today to chat NBA, a little bit of hockey, and then movies for the last 20 minutes here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Love what you're doing. This was a great time. I had a lot of fun, and keep doing what you're doing, man. I know you just had your 1 year show recently. Yes. I think this year more than anything has taught everybody that, hey, if you're creating content, if people get something out of it, if people are enjoying it and stuff, and it's making you happy, that's super important. So love the hustle, love what you do, keep doing it, and I hope to come back on again sometime in the future.
Absolutely. So I know that you guys are always working away at your podcast. So what do you have on schedule for next week here? Because I listened to your one the other day and Enjoy it as always.
Shameless self-promotion time. Let's get the shoulders a bit loose. All right. So we've got Trust the Process, which usually will come out on with episodes on the weekend. There's not a lot of Canucks stuff to get into after our last episode, but we'll be talking obviously in depth because we'll be recording after game 3 of Sixers Wizards. So we're talking about that. Wyatt will probably have some movie trivia questions. He'll probably torment me in many various ways. We'll be talking movies, we'll be talking music, we'll be talking pop culture and everything on top of the Canucks 76ers and just basically whatever else comes up. At the movies 10 years later, I mentioned that we'll have the Fast 5 episode will be the most recent episode by the time this airs. And then we've got Thor coming out, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, Battle Los Angeles. We're covering The Hangover Part 2, which I just watched the other day. Yikes. And we're all building up to it. It was a crazy summer in 2011. Like Green Lantern came out, X-Men First Class. It's the whole premise of the show is it's hard to believe it's been 10 years since some of these things came out and how, different things are now. Like this unknown Chris Hemsworth. Who is this jabroni that no one's ever heard of? Whereas now, guys, A-list.
And spoiler alert for Hangover 2, he's in the elevator.
Yes. I'm glad we did this after I watched it. Otherwise, I'd be furious.
Would have been terrible.
Yeah. And then for Trust the Process, we are working on and we'll be launching season 2 of Floorboards of Glory. The second bracket will be coming out. We are counting down and having fan votes for the most kind of irreverent, fun, silly, heartbreaking moments in Canucks history. So we're in the process of lining up our guests, getting the videos all edited. So early June next week or the week after, we'll be launching season 2, the second bracket for the Floorboards of Glory tournament. So keep an eye out for that as well.
Nice. So make sure you check that out on Twitter. Jay, thank you very much and have yourself a great day. Welcome back anytime.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Joshua.
All right. So I hope that everybody enjoyed that interview with Jay Bowman from Trust the Process podcast. Lots of NBA chat in there. What he thinks of his Philadelphia 76ers. Added some Canucks stuff in there and then finished off with movies. So hope that you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Make sure that you like the video down below and comment and let me know what you thought about my interview with Jay. If you disagree with any of our opinions, want to hear it, let me know. If you haven't been, make sure to check out all of the NBA highlights on the Sports Talkline Network and on the Basketball Talkline Network. We have all of the games, all the NBA games, the highlights for them every night, halftime highlights. A lot of talented people behind the scenes doing that. So give that a check if you are missing any of the NBA action for the playoffs. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. As always, I have been your host, Joshua Griffith, here on the Unnamed Sports Show, presented by the Sports Talkline Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. And until next week, remember to love sports, all sports.